Nigeria's leading presidential candidate Peter Obi pledged on Monday to rid Africa's most populous country, Nigeria, of endemic corruption. In the past 4 months, Kenya's health sector has been trying to contain a cholera outbreak. Tourism is spreading from Burkina Faso to its neighboring countries. Good afternoon, our dear viewers. Welcome to today's 1 p.m. news edition, coming to you live and direct from Golfe TV AFRICA here in the city of Cotonou with Hazel OGOIGBE. Now to the news in details. Today we are starting from Nigeria. Nigerian leading presidential candidate Peter Obi has pledged on Monday to rid Africa's most populous nation, Nigeria, of endemic corruption and widespread insecurity if he wins the February forthcoming presidential elections. Now, recent polls have shown Peter Obi is leading the crowded field ahead of the ruling party's candidate Bola Tinubu and the main opposition candidate Atiku Abubakar. More information in the following report. Nigerian leading presidential candidate Peter Obi pledged on Monday to rid Africa's most populous nation of endemic corruption and widespread insecurity if he wins next month's election in Nigeria. Peter Obi, who is one of the 18 seeking Nigeria's highest office, described his country as a failing state in need of new political leadership during his speech at the Chatham House International Affairs think tank in London.
Securing Nigeria is not impossible. I secured Anambra State has gone. And it won't be different. I said we will deal and talk with those we will win, we will talk with those who are winnable. It will be carrot and stick. And those who don't, we will deal with them. We're not going to shy away. Nigeria must be secured. It's a country. Every country must be secured. But we are not going to walk away from the problem. We'll deal with it. We have our armies and military used to secure Africa.
Recent polls have shown Peter Obi leading the crowded field ahead of the ruling party candidate Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the main opposition candidate Atiku Abubakar. This is despite those opponents having high names recognition. Tinubu is a former governor of Lagos State and Atiku Abubakar is a former vice president of Nigeria.
Starting point is to recognize that the absence of peace is largely an economic factor because people don't have outlets for opportunity. They are easy recruits for people with all kinds of untoward goals. And so to get the economy right, first talk to all the stakeholders, engage them appropriately, and when the engagement doesn't work, you show the force of the authority of the state.
Government needs to be more involved in the education of the people, and not only that, to provide jobs, to encourage investment from, say, the UK and other nations of the world who have an interest in the development of the nation because the potential is dazzling, you understand?
Political analysts have described the February 25, 2023 vote to replace Cuban President Muhammadu Buhari after 8 years in power as a make or mar exercise. Since campaigning began late last year, other top contenders have made pledges similar to Obi's. Tinubu has said he is seeking to renew hope, while Atiku has said he will rescue Nigeria. But observers warn that the exercise is threatened by the security challenges Nigeria is bedeviled with, including an Islamic extremist insurgency linked to the Islamic State in the northeast, rebels in the northwest, and secessionists in the southeast. On Monday, Peter Obi said he would conduct a dialogue with secessionists in Nigeria's southeast and a promise to introduce a range of security reforms, especially in the troubled northern region where thousands have been killed by armed gangs in the last year. Those changes could encourage members of Nigeria's large diaspora communities abroad to consider returning home and aiding development, Peter Obi added. Away from that, a local militia commander stated on Tuesday that 11 soldiers were killed in an attack on a military camp in Somalia, claimed by radical Islamic Shabab. Now, this comes a day after the government announced the recapture of a strategic town. A local militia commander stated on Tuesday that 11 soldiers were killed in an attack on a military camp claimed by radical Islamist Shabab. This comes a day after the government announced the recapture of a strategic town. 11 members of the army, including a commander, were killed and dozens of terrorists were killed, he added. The attack was claimed by the Shabab, an Al-Qaeda affiliated group. The Shabab have been fighting the internationally backed federal government since 2007. Driven out of the country's main cities in 2011 to 2012, they remain firmly entrenched in large rural areas. President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, who returned to power in May 2022, has promised an all-out war against the Islamist group and recently described its members as bedbugs. In September, he sent the army, including special forces, to support local militia known as Makawisli, who have rebelled against the Shabab. This offensive, supported by the African Union force in Somalia and U.S. airstrikes, has resulted in the recapture of large areas of two central states, Hishabelle and Galmudug. The Somali army recaptured on Monday Haradere, a port city considered strategic by the authorities, located about 500 kilometers north of the capital, controlled since 2010 by the Shabab. In the past 4 months, Kenya's health authorities have been trying to contain a cholera outbreak in some parts of the country. Now, experts say the disease can be contained with good hygiene practices. More information in the following report.
Cleanliness is difficult here. A lack of safe drinking water and proper sanitation also increase the risk of cholera.
People don't care about what is in their hands before they eat the food, or who is, cooking that particular food.
In December last year, Nairobi and the neighboring Kiambu County was hit with a cholera outbreak. Nyaberi attributes this to less adherence to simple hygiene measures such as hand washing.
During 2020 and 2021, we had very few cases, or even none, of COVID-19, of cholera. And this is because of the heightened mechanisms of hygiene and sanitation. We used to wash our hands, so frequently, sanitizing. They became, regulations that we were meant to follow. And so in all public places, this was adhered to, and we learned about it. Unfortunately, after the cases of COVID-19 have gone down, we have gone back to the old ways of doing things.
She says supply of clean water, public awareness, and putting in place proper infrastructure for sewage disposal can go a long way in preventing such outbreaks.
If we had strengthened healthcare systems where we ensure that we do not have open sewers in whichever kind of a place, whether it is in the slums or it is in the open places on the roads and in all these places, really, that would be of help. That would ensure that we get to have systems that are working.
In the meantime, she urges those buying fresh foods like fruits from kiosks and open-air stalls to be properly washed before consumption.
Terrorism is spreading from Burkina Faso to its neighboring countries, and West Africa is plagued with lots of challenges, which include famine, drought, and terrorism. More information in the following report from our partners.
Violence linked to Al-Qaeda in the Islamic State group is spilling over the border from Burkina Faso into northern Benin. A resident from a village further north, who asked that his identity be protected to avoid reprisals from authorities, said he lives in fear.
Concerning security in my village, the atmosphere is not been the same for some time. We are all afraid because of what we hear.
While terrorists have not yet come to his village, for other residents of the border area, terrorist violence spilling over from Burkina Faso, Niger and Mali, as this video from social media purports to show, is already a fact of life. This man, who also asked that his identity be protected from authorities, says a group of terrorists were passing through his village and sought refuge in a woman's home. When she arrived back from the market and asked them to leave, they killed her.
They hit her because she started screaming and was scared when she saw their guns. She was told to be quiet, and they ended up killing her.
Analysts say that extremist violence spreading from Burkina Faso into Western African coastal states like Benin, Togo, Ghana and Ivory Coast is the next stage in the Sahel conflict. Benin appears to be being singled out, with more militant attacks in the second half of 2022 than other coastal nations, according to data from the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project. Asked whether the government has done enough to stop the spread of violence, one expert said,
I personally think that little has been done. The Beninese authorities may have been guilty of a blind wait-and-see attitude that cannot be explained, because we could have imagined that this situation could degenerate and expand to the point of spilling over to the coastal borders, which is unfortunately what is happening.
The Beninese government has sent large numbers of troops to the north to shore up security and accompany militarized rangers in Penjari National Park, who have also been hit by terror attacks. Analysts say the military response is having an impact, but a recent report by the Clingendale Institute, a Netherlands-based think tank, found many more violent incidents occurred in Benin's north last year than the government has officially acknowledged. In 2022, one European journalist and several Beninese journalists were arrested while attempting to report on terrorism in the north. A consultancy that has been conducting workshops with communities in northern Benin to build resilience to violent extremism says many residents are too scared to talk about the issues.
Many of the comments that we got in the research was everyone and anyone could be a terrorist right now. We have no idea who's who, but we're scared to talk about what we're seeing and what we're concerned about. So really just creating a safe space is kind of like a baseline.
Benin's government did not respond to an interview request.
Thousands of migrants arrive at the U.S.-Mexican border every single month, trying to make their way into the United States. Now, this is a crisis which the U.S. President Joe Biden entered with new immigration regulations. More information in the following report.
The new immigration policies have created a dramatic challenge for these migrants from Haiti. Thousands are stuck here on the Mexican side of the border, trying to understand the new app. A pastor tries to explain, but many questions remain. Liu works for a refugee NGO. He too is trying to understand what the new US requirements mean for migrants.
I'm here to see what it's about and how I can help. I think it's through an app, as I understand it.
Next stop is a storage place. At least 3 times a week, he picks up warm clothes for the refugees. The nights are cold this time of the year. Leo tells us there are about 10,000 people in the region right now. In this camp, he's greeted with joy. Today he distributes socks for the children.
All I can do is help the people here. That's all I can do, even if it's only a drop in the bucket.
For most migrants here, figuring out how to register on the new app is the biggest problem. Grady Rodriguez, who fled Honduras, has no smartphone.
I'm stuck. I understand the U.S. with their new laws, it's fine. But here in camps like this, there are many of us who don't have money for a smartphone.
Grady is frustrated. He doesn't know what to do next.
Back to the African scene. Authorities in South Africa are searching for a tiger that escaped from its enclosure at a private farm near Johannesburg over the weekend. The tiger injured a man and killed a dog. More information in the following report. Authorities in South Africa are searching for a tiger that escaped from its enclosure at a private farm near Johannesburg over the weekend. It injured a man and killed a dog. Local media said the man survived the attack but was taken to the hospital. Residents have been warned to be on high alert in the Walkerville region south of Johannesburg and avoid confronting the animal as a group of about 30 people searched the area where its latest track was identified. Officials directing the search suspected that a female tiger named Sheba was hiding in a bushy area for shade, and they are hoping it would start moving around again once the summer heat subsides or when it needs to drink water. Members of a special police task force were expected to start leading the search on Monday and take over from a local community police group and the SPCA Animal Protection Group. Gresham Mandy, who leads the community police group, said the first priority was to tranquilize the animal with a dart and bring it back to safety.
She is dangerous. She will attack. She has attacked. She's attacked and killed a dog, a pig, a fallow deer, and then she also attacked a 39-year-old male. Fortunately, his injuries weren't too serious. Enclosure together with her male companion, and fences were cut by perpetrators, obviously to gain access to the property, to probably steal, and then she escaped through an open, a cut fence, and then she made her way to where we currently are.
It said the tiger escaped after a fence at the small holding where it was kept was cut off by burglars. The big cat, which is believed to be 8 years old, was kept on a farm as a pet. In recent years, more young people have been graduating from Somalia's universities, boosted by the country's increased stability and the recuperation of its economy. And many youngsters are taking advantage of the country's rapidly evolving financial sector to find and create jobs. More information in the following report.
After graduating 5 years ago from a university abroad, Shamsa Abdul Qadir returned home to find work, but there was already high unemployment rate. Taking advantage of her skills, Ms. Abdul Qadir applied for a microfinance program at local bank to establish her own business. Now, she has repaid back her loan and employs more than 10 people.
The financial support we received through the microfinance initiative has helped us purchase new equipment, leading to increased reliable customers. We've also got the capacity to employ more than 10 people. We're happy that we repaid our loan and look forward to opening new branches across the country in the near future.
With her new experience, the owner of Mogadishu-based nutrition center has a piece of advice for young people.
Young people who have business ideas, especially women, should take advantage of the banking sector microfinance project and implement their dreams. Establishing a business involves taking risks, but it's worth the effort because it's better working on your own, in your own company, rather than being employed by someone else.
Since September last year, my bank, which is headquartered in Somalia's capital, has provided microfinance services to about 200 people, mainly women. Most of them have repaid their credit and are already requesting for more funding.
Last quarter,
during the last quarter of the year, the bank has provided microfinance services to about 200 customers, receiving a maximum of $5,000 to a minimum of $300. Most of them have repaid their loan, which does not attract any interest, and are eligible for applying for another loan.
Apart from the funding, the bank also provides training for new business owners on marketing skills and product development to cement their investment.
Apart from providing financial support to boost their businesses, we also help them by building their skills in financial management, bookkeeping, marketing, as well as product development in their respective areas. Our experts also help them market research for those who want to establish another business.
According to the World Bank, Somalia's economy registered 2.9% growth in 2021, despite challenges related to drought, insecurity, and COVID-19. Somalia's financial sector is making rapid progress. According to the Central Bank of Somalia, more than 13 banks have been licensed to operate in the country, including 2 international banks from Turkey and Egypt respectively. Regional banks from Kenya and Ethiopia are also interested to have a share in the market.
Good day, dear viewers. Welcome to today's edition of the African Newspaper Review, coming to you live and direct from Golfe TV AFRICA here in the city of Cotonou with Hazel OGOIGBE. And today, as usual, I have stories that are trending on the various African countries. Pardon me. I have the pages of the Daily Guide, the Citizen Tanzania, and a whole lot of other stories. But today, we're going to be starting on the front page of the Daily Guide Ghana. On the front page of the Daily Guide Ghana, these are the stories that are making the rounds. This story says, Nana woos Abu Dhabi investors. You know, Ghana has been going through a really rough time, talking about their financial crisis, the economic crisis, the high level of inflation in Ghana. Bring investors to pump in economy. And of course, still on the pages of the Daily Guide Ghana, it says, BOG allays gold for oil policy fears, on the pages of the Daily Guide. And this story says, court to decide ex Maslock boss's faith, on the pages of the Daily Guide. And the last but not the least story says, I have not committed any crime. Kusim Boateng is speaking, on the pages of the Daily Guide Ghana. I'm going to be moving away from the pages of the Daily Guide Ghana. Let's cross over to my favorite newspaper, which is the pages of the Citizen Tanzania. It's always beautiful when you take African newspapers and you read them and you see beautiful stories of development, not stories of war or stories of death. Now on the pages of the Citizen Tanzania, this story reads, new twist for EAC monetary body timeline. And the story reads, this is what I'm going to be reading right about now. It says, the EAC has set a new deadline for the establishment of its monetary authority, which will spearhead the single currency initiative, with Tanzania and other member nations competing to host it. I'm totally a fan of a single current African currency. I'm of the opinion that when Africa comes together, we join as one, we have a single currency, will be stronger and more respected. The same way you have the dollar, the same way you have the euro, the same way you have the pound. Now on the pages of the Citizen, it says, why African talent needs promoting. And this story says, Zanzibar Airport controversy rages as another firm files case. That story could be found on the pages of the Citizen Tanzania. Now, I'm going to be crossing away from the Citizen Tanzania. Let's move over to the pages of the Guardian Post Cameroon. The Guardian Post, you know, sometimes you have stories of war, sometimes you have good stories. But you know, the aim and objective is to keep you updated with stories that are trending on the African scene. Now, on the pages of the Guardian Post Cameroon, this story is a top story, and it says, Custom generates over 897 billion CFA in 2022. Now, it says the department the department focuses and is determined, says the Director General. But then another question to ask is this revenue generated legally or is it generated illegally? These are the questions we need to ask on the pages of the Guardian Post Cameroon. Still on the Guardian Post Cameroon, it says, Biya wades into Cameroon's Medical Council election stalemate. And on the pages, this story says, Defense Minister salutes commitment and bravery of soldiers on the pages of the Guardian Post Cameroon. Time is running short, so we're going to be moving away from the pages of the Guardian Post Cameroon. Crossing away from the Guardian Post Cameroon, let's see the stories that are trending on the Nation Malawi. Now, here is on the pages of the Nation Malawi. The Nation Malawi doesn't really have much for us today, but we're just going to read the little summary of the stories that are trending and have that. Now, on the pages of the Nation Malawi, this story says, civil servants go to court over pension scheme. That is on the pages of the Nation Malawi. That is that. And the story says, Water Board eye tariff hike on the pages of the Nation Malawi. Crossing away from the Nation Malawi because our time is fast spent. Crossing quickly to the pages of the Star South Africa. Now on the pages of the Star South Africa, just one bold story that reads, accountability at the heart of ESCOM lawsuit on the pages of the Star. And the story says 98.4% pass rate for IEB class of 2022. That story could be found on the pages of the Star newspaper. Now, crossing away from the pages of the Star newspaper, let's cross over to the neighboring country, Nigeria, that always has stories that are sometimes good stories, sometimes bad stories, stories about insecurity. But let's see what the dailies, the Nation, Nigeria has in store for us today. Now, on the pages of the Nation, Nigeria, I'm going to start from here because the story is in bold. And it's saying, Atiku plans sale of nation's assets to allies, says Tinubu. There's been a backward and forward banter between the presidential candidate of the All Progressive Congress and also the presidential candidate of the leading opposition party, which is the PDP. Yesterday, you know, the party members, they were talking about, you need to sue this person, you need to sue that person. Now, this is an offshoot of that. And APC is saying that Atiku plans to sell Nigeria's assets to Nigeria's allies. That is on the pages of the Nation, Nigeria. Now, this story is saying, don't behave like ASU Ngige tells the new union, CONUA, that's his CONUA. ASU went on strike, and during the period of the strike, this new union was created. Now Ngige is telling the new union that they should not behave like ASU. If you know you're curious about that story, you could check more on the pages of the Nation, Nigeria. And I'll end today's daily with this, saying Boko Haram sponsors' aim was to split Nigeria. That is the president of Nigeria speaking on the pages of the Nation, Nigeria. And our dear viewers, our time is fast spent. This is where we conclude today's edition of the 1 p.m. news, coming to you live and direct from Golfe TV Africa with Hazel OGOIGBE. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Suivez sans relâche dans sa dynamique de mettre un terme définitif au diktat des puissances occidentales, le colon notamment, afin de procéder à l'éveil des connaissances